Maya stood in the hallway. She should have walked into the kitchen. She should have picked up Eli and gone home. That was what a woman who did not know what she was about to hear would have done. We can't let her find out about the real Will. It is better this way, believe me.
We cannot let her find out about this. Don't worry, she has no idea. It must stay that way until
What she
tomorrow.
heard in the next 8 minutes would change everything. 6 weeks earlier,
She found out on a Tuesday. Not a dramatic Tuesday. Not the kind of Tuesday that announces itself with bad weather or a feeling in the chest when you wake up. An ordinary Tuesday, scrubs still on, hospital ID still clipped to her pocket, feet still aching from a 12-hour shift that had started at 5 in the morning and ended 40 minutes ago. Maya Carter sat in a bank chair and watched a man in a gray suit type something into a computer, frown, type something else, and then look up at her with the expression people use when they are about to say something they would prefer not to say. "Miss Carter," he said, "I'm showing a current balance of $4,216 in your primary savings account." Maya looked at him. "Run it again," she said. He ran it again. $4,216. She had $61,400 in that account 3 months ago. She knew this because she checked it every Sunday morning with her coffee, the way some people check the weather, not because anything was going to change, but because seeing the number grow was the one reliable good feeling in a week that required a great deal of her and gave back considerably less. She had been saving for 3 years, every double shift, every skipped vacation, every birthday dinner she cooked at home instead of the restaurant she would have chosen if she had been choosing for herself instead of for the future she was building for her son. Eli was 4 months old. He was sleeping at her mother's house right now, in the bouncer with the elephant print that Maya had bought secondhand and cleaned 3 times before she trusted it. She had a listing saved on her phone, a 2-bedroom in a neighborhood with good schools and a park 4 minutes walk from the front door. She had looked at it 47 times. She was not going to be able to buy it. She stood up from the bank chair. She thanked the man in the gray suit because she had been raised to be polite even when the world was on fire. And she walked out of the building and across the parking lot, and she got into her car and she sat there. She did not cry. She was too tired to cry and too precise to cry before she understood what she was crying about. Instead, she took out her phone. She called her mother. Diane Carter picked up on the second ring. "Hey, baby, Eli's been." "Mama," Maya said, "I need you to tell me about my savings account." Silence. 3 seconds of it. And in those 3 seconds, Maya Carter, emergency room nurse, single mother, the woman her entire family had been calling the strong one since she was 23 years old, understood everything. Not the details. Not the how or the when or the full architecture of what had been done to her, but the fact of it, the bone-deep, cellular, devastating fact of it. Her mother had known this call was coming. The silence said so. "I had been the strong one my entire adult life," Maya said later, to Miss Yoon, to the empty apartment after Eli was asleep, to herself in the mirror on the mornings she needed to hear it out loud. "Strong enough to send money home every month when my mother's hours got cut. Strong enough to cover 2 rounds of my sister Serena's fertility treatments when her insurance stopped paying. Strong enough to work doubles and never say I was tired, because tired was a luxury and the strong one didn't get luxuries. I had been so busy being strong that I never noticed what my strength was being used to build. And it wasn't my house." Diane spoke. Her voice was calm in the specific way of a woman who has been rehearsing a conversation for months and has built a justification so solid she has confused it with a reason. She said that Serena's 4th round of treatment had come up suddenly, and the doctor said it was the last viable window, and they didn't have the money, and they knew Maya was saving, but they also knew Maya was strong, and they were going to pay it back. They had every intention of paying it back. They just needed time. "You took $61,000 from my account," Maya said, "without asking me." "We couldn't ask you," Diane said. "You would have said no." Maya ended the call. She sat in the parking lot for 11 minutes. She counted them. Then she drove to her sister's apartment. If you are new to this channel and this story already has you, and we know it does, hit that subscribe button right now. Because every single week, we bring you stories that pull you in from the first sentence and don't let you go. Stories about real women, real fights, and real reckonings. Subscribe, then come back. We are just getting started. Serena opened the door. She was 7 months pregnant, a roundness that should have been the occasion for uncomplicated joy between sisters, and was instead the most complicated thing Maya had ever had to look at. She looked at her sister's stomach. She looked at her sister's face. "You used my money," she said. Her voice was even. It was the voice she used in the ER when a situation was critical and falling apart emotionally was not an option. "The money I was saving for my son's home, you used it, and you didn't tell me." "Maya, did you think I wouldn't find out? We were going to tell you. We were going to pay it back." "How long?" Maya said. "How long have you known?" Serena's face did something complicated. The guilt moved through it, and then, with a speed that revealed how thoroughly she had been managing it, hardened into something else. 4 years, she said. "I have been trying for 4 years. You don't know what that feels like. You got pregnant without even trying. It just happened for you." "Serena," Maya looked at her. "I need you to hear what you just said." Serena heard it. She heard it, and she chose not to let it land, which was a choice Maya recognized, because she had watched her sister make it for 4 years, the choice to stay inside the grief, rather than look at what the grief had made her do. "I have been through things you cannot imagine," Serena said. "The injections, the waiting, the losing, every single time." And Mama said. "What did Mama say?" Maya said, quietly. "The way you get quiet when the answer is going to matter." Serena stopped. "What did Mama say, Serena?" "She said you had more than enough. She said you were always going to land on your feet," she said. Serena stopped again. Her hand went to her stomach, the automatic gesture of a woman protecting something. "She said Eli deserved to grow up with family around him. Real family. A stable situation." Maya looked at her sister's hand on her stomach. She looked at the pregnancy. She looked at the particular way Serena had said Eli deserved, not you deserve, not you need, but Eli deserved, and something cold and clarifying moved through her. "Tell me something," Maya said. "When this baby comes, what exactly did you and Mama decide about Eli?" Serena didn't answer. Not immediately. And the pause was 3 seconds long, which was the same length as her mother's pause on the phone 40 minutes ago. And Maya understood that this pause contained the same thing the other pause had contained. The thing they had not said. The thing they had planned. "We thought," Serena started. "Mama thought, with J-Ho gone, and you working all those hours, and the money situation." "Say it," Maya said. "We thought Eli might be better with—" Serena stopped, started again, "with more stability, with a 2-parent home, with someone who could be there full time, and, quote, you were going to try to take my son," Maya said. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact delivered in the same tone she used to tell families in the ER things they did not want to hear, because the truth did not become kinder by being softened, and the damage done by pretending otherwise was always greater than the damage done by clarity. Serena's eyes filled. "We love Eli." "You love Eli," Maya said, "and you stole his home and then decided he should live in yours." She stepped back from the doorway. "I need you to understand something. Eli is my son. He will remain my son. Whatever you and Mama have been planning, whatever conversations you have had about stability and 2-parent homes, I need you to stop having them." She turned and walked to her car. She drove 3 blocks. She pulled over. She sat with both hands on the steering wheel, and she breathed in through the nose. 4 counts. Out slowly, the way she taught patients to breathe when their bodies were in crisis and their minds hadn't caught up yet. Then she called Miss Yoon. Miss Yoon was a family attorney whose name Maya had gotten from a colleague 6 months ago, filed in her phone under just in case, and had hoped never to use. The call lasted 4 minutes. Miss Yoon asked 3 questions, listened to the answers, and said, "Come in tomorrow morning. Bring everything you have. Bank records, any communications, anything in writing." "I have bank records," Maya said. "I don't have much else yet." "Get more," Miss Yoon said. "Before they know you're getting it." Maya drove to pick up Eli from her mother's house. She arrived 40 minutes early. The front door was unlocked, which it always was because Diane Carter had lived in this neighborhood for 30 years and still believed in the safety of the streets of her youth. Maya let herself in quietly. Eli was in the living room, sleeping in his bouncer. She could hear her mother and sister talking in the kitchen. She stood in the hallway. She should have walked into the kitchen. She should have picked up Eli and gone home. That was what a woman who did not know what she was about to hear would have done. Instead, she took out her phone. She opened the voice memo application. She pressed record. And she listened. What she heard in the next 8 minutes reorganized everything she thought she understood about the last 4 years. Diane was talking about instability, about Jae-ho Kim Jae-ho, Maya's partner, who had been missing for 6 weeks following what Maya had been told was a business dispute, who Maya had spent 42 days trying to locate. Diane was describing him not as a man who had disappeared under unclear circumstances, but as a liability, a danger, evidence of Maya's poor judgment. "The courts look at these things," Diane said. "A woman with no savings, no home security, a partner connected to criminal enterprise, working 70 hours a week, that's not a stable environment." "She won't agree to anything," Serena said. "You know how she is." "She doesn't have to agree," Diane said. "She just has to be shown that fighting is harder than cooperating, that Eli would be better served by us," Serena said. "By family," Diane said. "By people who can give him what she can't right now. And if she gets back on her feet, gets the money back, gets a place?" "We file before that happens," Diane said. "We move before she stabilizes. The window is now, Serena. It won't stay open." Maya stood in the hallway with her phone recording, and she felt the floor tilt beneath her. Not literally, not physically, but in the way it tilts when the architecture of your life is revealed to have been built on a foundation that was never what you thought it was. 8 years of being the strong one. 8 years of double shifts and wired money, and Serena's medical bills and her mother's rent gap covered quietly without complaint. Because complaint was not what the strong one did. And they had been measuring the window, planning the filing date, deciding when her son would stop being hers. She recorded 8 minutes and 40 seconds of it. Then she walked into the living room, picked up Eli from his bouncer, settled him against her chest, and walked out the front door without going into the kitchen. Behind her, she heard her mother call her name. She kept walking. Are you watching this right now and feeling what Maya felt in that hallway? Drop a comment below and tell us. Tell us the moment that got you. Tell us if you have ever stood in a hallway and heard something that changed everything. We read every comment, every single one. This community is everything to this channel. Comment right now and then keep watching. She sat in the car with Eli strapped into his seat behind her, sleeping through all of it the way babies sleep through the things that will shape their lives before they are old enough to know it. And she played the recording back once. She listened to her mother's voice say, "The window is now," and she felt something shift inside her. Not break, not collapse, but shift. The way tectonic things shift. Slowly, completely, with implications that would only fully reveal themselves over time. She was not going to let them take her son. She was going to make sure they understood in the clearest possible language, in the most documented possible way, in the most permanent possible record, what they had done and what it was going to cost them. She drove to Miss Yoon's office. It was 6:45 in the evening. Miss Yoon was still there. Maya had called ahead. She sat across the desk with Eli in the carrier on her chest. She placed her phone on the desk. She pressed play. Miss Yoon listened without expression for 8 minutes and 40 seconds. When it ended, she looked at Maya. "How soon can you get me the complete bank records?" "I have them on my phone right now," Maya said. Miss Yoon almost smiled. It was the smile of a woman who has sat across from a great many clients and has learned to recognize, in the first 15 minutes, which ones are going to be all right. "Tell me everything," she said. From the beginning, Maya told her everything. She was precise the way she was always, precise dates, amounts, the specific sequence of events, the things said and the things implied, and the things she had understood only in retrospect. Miss Yoon wrote and listened and asked clarifying questions at exactly the right moments, the questions of a woman building a structure rather than simply gathering information. When Maya finished, Miss Yoon set down her pen. "The recording is significant," she said. "The financial documentation is significant. What they have is a narrative instability, absent partner, long work hours. Narratives can be built, and narratives can be dismantled. What you have is evidence. Evidence is harder to argue with." "They said they're going to file before I stabilize," Maya said. "That's the plan. Move while the window is open." "Then we move first, Miss," Yoon said. "We file a protective motion on Eli's behalf, establishing your parental rights and documenting the financial theft as a pattern of exploitation rather than a family loan. We reframe everything before they have the opportunity to frame it themselves." "How long?" "We file tomorrow," Miss Yoon said. Maya looked at her. "I don't have the legal fees." "Miss Carter." Miss Yoon looked at her over the desk with the directness of a woman who has made a career of cutting through the things people are embarrassed to say. "You have documented evidence of $61,000 stolen from your account. We will recover costs. File tomorrow and let me worry about the fees until we do." Maya drove home. She put Eli to bed. She sat at her kitchen table and she opened her laptop and she began doing what she always did. When she was frightened, she worked. She pulled every bank statement, every wire transfer record, every text message where she had confirmed money sent to her mother, every receipt for Serena's medical bills that she had paid and kept because Maya Carter kept receipts, because she was a woman who had learned early that the world did not give you credit for what you could not prove. 8 years of records, 3 years of savings, the specific, meticulous paper trail of a woman who had given everything and documented all of it. She was still at the table at 2 in the morning when her phone lit up. An unknown number, Seoul area code. She stared at it for 2 rings, then she answered. "Maya." The voice was exhausted and careful and absolutely unmistakable. "Jae-ho," she said. Kim Jae-ho, her partner, Eli's father. The man who had been missing for 42 days following an ambush that his family's associates had described to Maya as a business complication with the particular vagueness of people who deal in vague on a professional basis. "I'm coming home," he said. "I'm at the airport. I'll be there in 14 hours. She closed her eyes. She pressed her hand flat on the kitchen table and breathed. "Are you hurt?" she said. "Not anymore," he said. "Eli is fine," she said. "He's been fine. He learned to grab things." Yen. She heard something on the other end of the line that was not quite a sound, the particular quality of a man doing something with his face that he was not going to describe out loud. "I know about the money," he said. "I know what they did. Someone told me when I was away. I've been trying to get back since I found out." "There's more than the money," Maya said. Silence. "Tell me," he said. She told him everything she had told Miss Yoon, briefer, because he knew the background she had to explain to the attorney. His silence on the other end was different from her mother's silence and her sister's silence. It was not the silence of a man calculating. It was the silence of a man who has been in rooms full of the kind of people who do the kinds of things her mother and sister had just done, and who understood with total clarity the category of action this was. "I need you to do something for me," Maya said. "Anything," he said. "I need you to come home and be Eli's father. Not anything else, not the other thing, just his father. The pause was longer this time. "That's why I'm coming home," he said. "That's the only reason." She believed him. Not blindly. Maya Carter did not do anything blindly, but with the specific faith of a woman who had spent 2 years watching a man make incremental, costly, genuine choices to become someone different from who his family had built him to be. Those choices had not been easy for him. She had watched them not be easy. That watching counted for something. 14 hours, she said. 14 hours, he said. She ended the call. She looked at the kitchen table full of bank statements and medical receipts and 8 years of proof. She looked at the baby monitor on the counter, the green light steady, Eli breathing evenly in his room. She did not go to sleep. She kept working. At 6 in the morning, she sent Miss Yoon a complete document package, every record, organized by year and category, with a summary sheet that laid out the full financial picture in the clean, precise language of a woman who had once considered medical accounting before she chose nursing. Miss Yoon replied at 6:14. "This is remarkable documentation. Filing at 9. Do not contact your mother or sister before I tell you to." Maya showered. She fed Eli. She went to work. She was halfway through her shift when she got the text from her mother. "We need to talk. This has gone far enough. You are tearing this family apart." She read it 3 times. She thought about the hallway. She thought about the window is now. She put her phone back in her pocket and went to check on her patient in Bay 4. Now, right now, if this story is keeping you up, if you are on the edge of whatever seat you are sitting in, we need you to do one thing. Subscribe to this channel. Hit the button, top bot. Because Maya's fight is not over, and the best parts of this story are still coming, and you cannot miss what happens next. Subscribe, like the video, and stay right here. At 5 in the evening, Jeho was at her door. He looked different. Not damaged he had been in situations before, and had always healed cleanly, but different in a way that was harder to name. Quieter. The specific quietness of a man who has been somewhere that required him to think about who he was and who he wanted to be, and has come back with an answer he intends to keep. He looked at her first, then past her. "Where is he?" he said. She stepped aside. Eli was in his bouncer in the living room, grabbing at the toy bar with the focused determination of a 4-month-old who has recently discovered his own hands and finds them fascinating. Jeho crossed the room. He sat on the floor in front of the bouncer. He looked at his son. Eli looked back at him. He grabbed at air in Jeho's direction. Something in Jeho's face opened in a way that Maya had never seen before and would think about for a long time afterward. "Hey," he said to Eli, very quietly. "I'm here. I'm sorry it took so long." Maya stood in the doorway and watched a man decide who he was going to be. And she thought that whatever came next, the court, her mother, Serena, all of it, she was not going to be doing it alone. That mattered. She had not realized until this moment how much it mattered. 3 days later, Diane Carter filed. Maya had known it was coming. Miss Yoon had known it was coming. They had filed first, which meant the protective motion was already on record, which meant Diane and Serena's filing landed in a courtroom where the conversation had already been framed by Maya's documentation and Maya's attorney, and 8 years of receipts that said something considerably different from what Diane's filing claimed. The filing described Maya as financially unstable. It cited the savings account without mentioning why the savings account was empty. It cited Jeho's 6-week absence and his family's business associations. It cited Maya's work hours as evidence of unavailability. It used the word welfare 11 times in connection with Eli's name. Miss Yoon read it at her desk, with Maya sitting across from her. She read it completely, without expression, and then she set it down and she said, "They made a significant error." "What error?" Maya said. "They cited the savings account." Miss Yoon looked at her. "They opened the door to the savings account, which means We walk through it. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. Maya went home and told Jeho. He was on the floor with Eli, which was where she found him most evenings, now on the floor at Eli's level, in the patient and complete way of a man making up for lost time by being entirely present for the time that remained. "What do you need from me?" he said. "The hearing," she said. "They're going to say you're a liability, that your background makes Eli's environment unstable." He looked at her. "I know what they're going to say. Miss Yoon thinks your testimony matters, not about your family's business, about your choices, the specific choices you've made in the last 2 years." He was quiet for a moment. Eli grabbed his finger. "I'll testify," he said. "Whatever she needs." "It's going to be uncomfortable," Maya said. "They're going to ask things." "Maya," he looked at her. "I have been uncomfortable before. Uncomfortable in that courtroom is the easiest thing I'm going to do." She believed him. She went to bed. She slept for the first time in 11 days without waking up twice. The 3 weeks before the hearing were the 3 hardest weeks of Maya Carter's life, and she had already had some very hard weeks. She worked. She parented. She met with Miss Yoon 4 times. She compiled additional documentation at Miss Yoon's request, records she had not initially thought relevant, records that Miss Yoon wanted for reasons, she explained, with the calm precision of someone who could see the shape of the courtroom outcome 3 moves ahead. Dr. Okafor called her 2 weeks before the hearing. He had been Maya's OB for the entirety of her pregnancy, and Eli's pediatrician since birth, a woman of 61, with the particular authority of someone who has delivered a great many babies and knows what a mother looks like at every stage of the process. "I heard," Dr. Okafor said. "I don't know all the details, and I don't need them. I know you, and I know that child. If you need someone to speak to what I've observed over the last 14 months, I am available." Maya had to hold the phone away from her face for a moment. "Thank you," she said, when she trusted her voice. "Don't thank me," Dr. Okafor said. "I'm a witness. I'm just telling you what I saw." The night before the hearing, Jeho made dinner. This was not a thing he had done before. He had many qualities, and cooking had not historically been among them, which had been a source of gentle comedy between them for 2 years. But he had spent the afternoon in the kitchen, with his phone propped against the backsplash, showing a cooking video. And what he produced was imperfect and warm, and tasted like the specific effort of someone doing something they were not good at, because the occasion required it. They ate at the kitchen table, with Eli in his high chair between them, managing a piece of soft bread with the intense concentration of a person for whom this task represented a significant frontier. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Jeho said. "Don't," Maya said. I know what you're going to say," she said, "and I know you mean it. But I don't want to sit here tonight and talk about what happens if it goes wrong. I want to sit here and eat this dinner you made and watch Eli figure out that bread." He looked at her. Then he looked at Eli. "He's going to get it in a second," Jeho said. "He's been working on it for 4 minutes," Maya said. "He's going to figure it out." Eli got it. He looked up at both of them with the expression of a person who has accomplished something and knows it. Maya laughed, a real laugh, the kind that arrives without permission and bypasses everything you have been carrying to get there. Jeho laughed too. And for 30 seconds, at a kitchen table the night before, the most important legal proceeding of her life, Maya Carter was simply a woman having dinner with her family, and it was enough, and it was real, and nobody was going to take it from her. The next morning they arrived at the courthouse at 8:45. Miss Yoon was already there, a woman who was always already there, who had the specific energy of someone who has prepared so thoroughly that the event itself is almost a formality. "How are you?" Miss Yoon said. "Ready?" Maya said. "Good," Miss Yoon said. "Because today we are going to walk through the door they opened." Diane and Serena arrived 8 minutes later. Maya saw them across the lobby, her mother in the gray coat she wore to important occasions, Serena moving carefully with the weight of the pregnancy, both of them with the attorney they had hired, a man Maya didn't recognize, who had the polished, slightly aggressive energy of someone who charged a great deal and expected that to be sufficient. Diane looked at Maya across the lobby. Maya looked back at her. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them looked away first. They simply looked at each other across the marble floor of the courthouse lobby. Two women who had loved each other for 34 years and had arrived here anyway. And then the doors to the courtroom opened and everyone went inside. And if you are watching this right now and your heart is in your throat, like this video right now. It takes 1 second. This story is real and the fight is real. And Maya deserves every like this video gets. Hit it, then stay. The courtroom is about to begin. The courtroom was smaller than Maya had expected. She had built it larger in her imagination. Over 3 weeks of preparation, more imposing, more theatrical, the kind of space that announces its own gravity. The actual room was functional and fluorescent and smelled faintly of the coffee someone had brought in and not finished. The judge was a woman in her mid-50s named Judge Huang, who had the manner of someone who has heard a great many family disputes and has long since stopped being surprised by what families do to each other, while simultaneously retaining the specific attentiveness of someone who understands that behind every file is a child who did not choose any of this. She looked at both parties' representation. She looked at the filings. She looked at Maya. Then she said, "Let's begin." Diane's attorney went first. He was smooth, the particular smoothness of someone who has learned to make sympathy sound like argument. He painted a picture of a grandmother, an aunt, motivated by love and concern. He described Maya's circumstances with the careful language of someone who was technically not lying about any individual fact while constructing from those facts a portrait that Maya barely recognized as herself. He said welfare 7 times. He did not mention the savings account. Miss Yoon made 1 note on her legal pad. Then it was her turn. "Your Honor," Miss Yoon said, "I'd like to begin with the savings account." Diane's attorney shifted. The smoothness recalibrated. Miss Yoon placed the first document on the table, the bank statement from 18 months ago, showing $61,400. She placed beside it the statements tracking the withdrawals. She placed beside those the records showing where the money had gone, the fertility clinic, the transaction dates, the amounts, each one corresponding with the precision of a forensic accountant's nightmare to a date and a procedure in Serena's medical record. Miss Carter's savings account, Miss Yoon said, did not become depleted through financial instability. It was depleted by unauthorized withdrawals made by the petitioners over a period of 14 months. She looked at the judge. The financial instability cited as grounds for this filing was created by the filing parties themselves. Judge Huang looked at the documents. She looked at Diane's attorney. She said nothing, which was its own kind of statement. Then Miss Yoon played the recording. 8 minutes and 40 seconds of Diane Carter's voice and Serena Carter's voice in Diane's kitchen, discussing the window and the filing and the stability argument and the timing, all of it in their own words, at their own pace, with the specific candor of people who believed they were speaking privately. The courtroom was very quiet. Maya did not look at her mother during the recording. She looked at the table in front of her and she listened to the words she had already listened to a dozen times, and she kept her face completely still because she was an emergency room nurse, and she knew how to keep her face still when everything inside it was doing something else. When the recording ended, Judge Huang looked at Diane directly. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "can you explain the discrepancy between the filing's characterization of your daughter's financial situation and the documentation Miss Yoon has just presented?" Diane's attorney leaned toward her. She listened to whatever he said, and then she looked at the judge. "We intended to repay the money," she said. "We fully intended." "That wasn't my question," Judge Huang said. Silence. Then Dr. Okafor testified. She was precise and warm, in equal measure, the combination of qualities that made her both an excellent doctor and an excellent witness. She described 14 months of observation, Maya's prenatal care, consistent, and careful. Her postpartum recovery, managed while working and parenting alone. Eli's development, which was textbook, and then some. She described the specific quality of attention she had watched Maya bring to every appointment, every question, every concern that arose. In 14 months, Dr. Okafor said, "I have never had cause to question this mother's fitness, judgment, or commitment to her son's well-being. I have had cause to question whether the people around her were giving her the support she deserved. The answer to that question is in this room today." Diane's attorney objected on grounds of relevance. Judge Huang overruled him with the economy of a woman who had already made up her mind about relevance. Then Jae-ho testified. He was not comfortable. He had said it would be uncomfortable, and he had been right. Diane's attorney asked pointed questions about his family's business history, about the 6-week absence, about his associations and his past. Jae-ho answered all of it directly, without deflection, without the careful vagueness Maya had sometimes seen him use in situations where full disclosure felt dangerous. He told the truth, which in some cases was not a simple or flattering truth, and he told it anyway. In the last 2 years, Miss Yoon asked him, "What specific changes have you made in how you conduct your professional and personal life?" Jae-ho looked at her. Then he looked at the judge. "I stepped back from my family's business operations," he said. Formally, 18 months ago. I have been building a separate business logistics consulting, fully documented, fully registered, that has no connection to my family's other activities." He paused. "I was ambushed 6 weeks ago by people connected to a dispute within my family's organization. I was not the target. I was in the wrong place because I had not yet fully completed the separation. I have completed it now." "Why?" Miss Yoon said. He looked at Maya, just for a moment. "Because I have a son," he said, "and I want him to know who his father is. Not who his father came from, who his father chose to be." The courtroom was quiet. Judge Huang made a note. The recess was 20 minutes. Maya sat in a hallway with Miss Yoon on one side and Jae-ho on the other, and she drank a cup of water, and she did not think about what was coming, because thinking about what was coming was not going to change it, and she had done everything she could do, and now it was in the hands of a woman in a courtroom who had looked at the evidence and listened to the recording, and heard Dr. Okafor describe 14 months of consistent, careful, devoted motherhood. It was enough. She had to believe it was enough. Serena found her in the hallway during the recess. She came alone, without Diane, without the attorney. Just Serena in her gray coat, with her pregnancy and her 4 years of grief, and her face doing something Maya had not seen it do in a long time. Something that looked like the grief without the entitlement. The raw version of it. The version that existed before it had been processed into justification. "I didn't think Serena started." "I know," Maya said. "When Mama said I wanted it so much that I stopped thinking about what it cost you, I just stopped." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry." Maya looked at her sister, at the pregnancy, at the baby that was coming in 2 months, the baby that had been purchased with Maya's future, without Maya's knowledge or consent, the baby that was also inescapably her niece or nephew, a person who had not chosen any of this and would arrive into the world regardless of what was decided in the room down the hall. "I know you're sorry," Maya said. "I need you to also know what you did. Those are 2 different things." Serena nodded. She was crying now, openly, without management. "Go be with your baby," Maya said. "We'll figure out the rest later." Serena went back down the hallway. Miss Yoon reappeared. "It's time," she said. They went back into the courtroom. Judge Huang did not make them wait. She looked at her notes. She looked at both parties. She looked at the documents arrayed before her, the bank statements, the transaction records, the medical receipts, the 8 minutes and 40 seconds of a kitchen conversation that had been intended to remain private and had instead become the most important thing said in this courtroom all day. This case, she said, was filed on grounds of parental instability and environmental unsuitability. The documentation presented by the respondent establishes that the financial instability cited as evidence was not the result of the respondent's circumstances, but was actively created by the petitioners through unauthorized use of the respondent's personal savings over a 14-month period. She looked at Diane. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "you withdrew $61,400 from your daughter's savings account without her knowledge or consent. You then cited the resulting financial deficit as evidence of her unsuitability as a parent. I want to make sure the record reflects that clearly." Diane looked at her lap. "The audio recording entered into evidence," Judge Huang continued, "demonstrates a coordinated effort to move against the respondent's parental rights within a specific timeline. A timeline motivated not by concern for the child's welfare, but by concern that the respondent would stabilize before the filing could be made." She looked up. "That is not what this court exists to support." She looked at Eli's name in the file, just for a moment. The specific pause of a judge who has remembered that the file has a person in it. "Full parental rights remain with Maya Simone Carter," she said. "The petition is denied. On the matter of the unauthorized withdrawals, I am referring the financial documentation to the relevant civil authority for recovery proceedings. Mrs. Carter, Miss Serena Carter, you will want to discuss repayment terms with your legal representation immediately." She closed the file. "We're adjourned," she said. Maya sat very still for 3 seconds after the gavel came down. She sat and she felt the ruling settle into her body, the way large things settle, not all at once, not dramatically, but in layers, each one landing and making room for the next. Miss Yoon placed her hand briefly on Maya's arm. That was all. That was enough. Jae-ho reached across and took her hand. She let him. "Ina." Across the room, Diane Carter stood slowly. She looked at Maya, the same look from the courthouse lobby, held for the same length of time. But something in it had changed. The certainty was gone. What replaced it was not quite guilt. Diane was not a woman who arrived at guilt quickly, but something adjacent to it. The look of a woman who has been shown, in the clearest possible terms, the gap between what she believed she was doing and what she actually did. Maya held her gaze. She did not look away. She did not perform forgiveness, and she did not perform anger. She simply looked at her mother with the full weight of 34 years and $61,000, and a hallway recording, and an 8-month-old son who was currently a doctor. Okafor's office with the babysitter Maya had arranged because she had not been willing to bring him into a courtroom where people were arguing about whether he was hers. He was hers. The court had confirmed what she already knew. Diane looked away first. She followed her attorney out of the courtroom with the slow, careful pace of a woman who had gone in expecting one outcome and received another, and had not yet built a story to put around it. Maya stood. She straightened her jacket. She picked up her bag. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon was cold and clear, the specific clarity of a November day that has decided to be beautiful despite the season's general intention. Maya stood on the steps with Miss Yoon and Jae-ho, and she breathed the cold air, and she felt, for the first time in 3 weeks, the specific quality of a woman who has been holding something enormous and has just been permitted to set it down. "What happens now?" Jae-ho said. "Now I go get my son," Maya said. She went to Dr. Okafor's office. Eli was in the waiting area with the babysitter, grabbing at a board book with a focused intensity that had become his signature expression. He looked up when Maya came through the door. His face did the thing it had started doing recently, the recognition, the activation, the reaching. She picked him up. She held him against her chest. "Hi," she said. "Hi, baby. I've got you." He grabbed her collar. He pulled it toward his face with the aggressive affection of a person who has not yet learned that things can be held gently and loves everything at full force. She laughed. She drove home. Jae-ho had gotten there before her. He was in the kitchen. on the phone, speaking in rapid Korean that she caught fragments of, enough to understand that he was managing the last threads of the separation from his family's operations, the final phone calls that would close the door he had been walking away from for 18 months. He ended the call when she came in. He looked at her. And Eli, "Done?" she said. "Not about the call, about all of it." "Done," he said. "Not about the call, about all of it." She put Eli in his bouncer. She sat at the kitchen table. She opened her laptop. She had been sitting on an idea for 4 months since the last trimester of her pregnancy, when she had been admitted to her own hospital for observation and had spent 2 days in a postpartum ward watching women navigate the hardest weeks of their lives with inadequate support, inadequate information, and the specific isolation of people who have been told that what they are experiencing is normal without being told that normal can still be devastating. She had been a nurse for 9 years. She knew what those women needed. She knew because she had needed it too and had had no place to go for it. She opened a new document. She typed 2 words at the top of the page: Tender Hours. A postpartum care center, community-based, designed by a nurse who knew the gap between what hospitals provided and what mothers actually needed in the weeks and months after delivery. Staffed by people who understood that the body's recovery and the mind's adjustment and the logistical reality of a new baby were 3 separate emergencies happening simultaneously, and that most women were expected to manage all 3 alone. Not anymore. Not in her center. Not on her watch. She wrote for 2 hours. Jeho put Eli to bed. He brought her tea without being asked. He sat at the other end of the table with his own laptop and his own work, and they worked in the particular comfortable quiet of 2 people who have been through something together and have arrived at the other side of it and are now simply living. 3 months later, Maya Carter signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood with good schools and a park 4 minutes from the front door. It was not the apartment she had saved, for that apartment had been the dream of a woman who did not yet know what she was going to need, and what she needed now was different and better, and more specifically, hers. 6 months after that, Tender Hours opened. The space was small at first, 3 rooms in a community health building, rented at a subsidized rate because Dr. Okafor had made 3 phone calls on Maya's behalf, and Dr. Okafor's phone calls had a way of producing results. The walls were painted a warm yellow that Maya had chosen after looking at 43 paint samples, because, after everything she had been through, she was going to take as long as she needed to choose the color of her walls. Women came. First the ones Dr. Okafor referred, then the ones those women told. Then women Maya had never met who had found the center's name through a post in a community group or a flyer in a pediatrician's waiting room, or from a friend who had spent 3 weeks at Tender Hours in the fog of newborn exhaustion and postpartum anxiety, and had said to every person who asked how she was doing, "There is a place. There is actually a place." Serena's baby was born in February. A girl, 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Maya got the text from Serena at 3 in the morning, and she lay in bed, and she looked at the ceiling, and she felt all of it. The complexity, the grief, the love that was still there underneath everything that had happened to it, the specific ache of a relationship that had been broken and was going to take a long time and a great deal of honesty to rebuild if it was going to be rebuilt at all. She typed back, "She's beautiful. Rest. We'll talk when you're ready." She put her phone down. She looked at the ceiling for another minute. Then she went to sleep. Diane called 6 weeks after the ruling. Not to argue, not to justify. The call was short and halting, in the way of a woman who is doing something that does not come naturally to her and has decided to do it anyway. "I want to understand," Diane said. "What I did. I want to. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want to understand it." Maya was quiet for a moment. "That's a start," she said. "That's actually a start." They did not resolve anything on that call. Resolution was not a single call's work, and Maya was not going to pretend otherwise. But the call happened, and the next one would happen. And somewhere inside the long and difficult work of accountability and boundary and cautious, conditional rebuilding, there was the beginning of something that was not what they had been and might, over time, become something worth having. On a Saturday morning in April, Maya Carter stood inside Tender Hours before it opened and looked at what she had built: the yellow walls, the resource library, the nursing station that doubled as a consultation space, the small room in the back with soft lighting and a white noise machine where mothers who were running on no sleep could rest for an hour while a trained volunteer watched their baby. The space was quiet. The morning light was coming through the windows at the angle that made everything look like the beginning of something. Jeho appeared in the doorway with Eli on his hip. Eli was 7 months old now and had opinions about everything and expressed them at full volume, and had just learned to wave, which he did at anyone and anything with the indiscriminate enthusiasm of a person who has recently discovered that other things exist. He waved at the yellow walls. Maya laughed. Jeho crossed the room and stood beside her, and the three of them looked at Tender Hours in the Saturday morning light, the thing she had built from a wound, the place she had made from the worst months of her life, the answer she had chosen to give to what her family had done to her, which was not bitterness, and not withdrawal, and not the closing of every door, but the building of new ones, propped open, lit from inside, for every woman who needed to know there was somewhere she could go. "You did this," Jeho said. "We're doing this," she said. Eli waved at the window. Outside, Seoul was waking up. The park 4 minutes away was beginning to fill with Saturday morning people. The streets were doing what streets do: indifferent, alive, moving forward without waiting for anyone. Maya Carter had stopped waiting. She had a home. She had her son. She had a man who had chosen, at significant cost, to become the person she needed him to be. She had $61,000 coming back to her in court-ordered installments, which she was going to put in an account that had only her name on it and check every Sunday morning with her coffee. She had Tender Hours. She had, finally and completely, herself. And if this story reached something in you today, if you felt Maya in that bank chair, in that hallway, in that courtroom, in this room, then this video deserves everything you can give it right now. Like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear a story about a woman who refused to let them take what was hers. And if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, do it right now, because this is what we do every week. Stories about women who fight, who build, who refuse, who win. Stories that remind you that the strong one deserves protection too. Subscribe, comment below, and tell us which moment hit you hardest. We will see you in the next one.